Welcome to the Damn Strong podcast. I'm your host, Bree, and I'm a full-time online fitness coach, and my passion is to educate women on all things fitness. I help women just like you step into the power of knowledge and commitment to ultimately live your best and strongest life. In this podcast, we'll talk about being damn strong in our body, mind, and life. I'll be teaching you how to navigate nutrition, strength training, and mindset challenges. So get ready to take some notes because we're building a damn strong life. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bree, and this is the Damn Strong podcast. And today we're taking a little bit of a zoom out on maintenance. We're looking at the bigger picture here. Okay. So if you are coming to this episode hoping to learn like what reverse dieting is and like how to find your maintenance calories, that is not this episode. That is going to be episode 43, my reverse dieting episode, how to find maintenance. I think you should still listen to this episode. I don't think you necessarily need to listen to episode 43 first before you listen to this. But if you are coming here looking for that kind of direction, that's going to be episode 43. This episode, my goal is really to get the gears turning and to get you thinking, because I don't think we talk enough about maintenance online, and understandably so. I think more people are trying to figure out like how to lose weight, and that's just more of a need online. But at the same time, being in a deficit and losing weight is ultimately going to be a very, very small part of your life. Like actively losing body fat. I know like being in a deficit mindset, it may feel like you've been trying to lose weight for the last 10 years, right? And so that deficit mindset has felt like forever. But when you are in a deficit, losing body fat, your actual phase of losing body fat is very small in the grand scheme of your life. You will spend most of your life at maintenance. And we don't talk about it a lot. And again, I understand because more people are struggling with just losing the body fat, but then we forget about, okay, after you lose the body fat, then you got to think about maintenance. And a lot of people talk about, okay, here's how you find your maintenance calories. Here's how to reverse diet. But there's a lot of things that I personally feel like people aren't talking through. And I have these conversations with my clients all the time because most clients come to me, they want to lose body fat. Once they lose body fat, then we go back to maintenance. And yes, I reverse diet them. We go through numbers and we find their maintenance calories. But there's also these, I want to say hard conversations, but just like really honest conversations about, okay, like what's maintenance going to look like for you? That's what's really, really important. Because like, yeah, we can get you a number and everything. We can find out where your maintenance calories are. And I think that's valuable because I think it's very valuable to see, I think most women believe that, they can't eat any food and they have to eat 1,300 calories for the rest of their lives to be able to maintain their body weight. And it's like, no, you probably could be eating a lot more food and you actually can maintain your body weight. And it's nice to like be able to see those numbers and see, wow, I'm maintaining my body fat levels. I'm going to clarify that body fat levels, and I'm eating more food. I think that's very, very empowering. But then there's a whole other side that needs to be discussed of like, okay, yes, you lost this weight. Is this realistic? It's not a dream body if it's a nightmare to maintain. And that's the conversation that we really, really need to have is, sure, you lost this weight and sure, you are able to eat this many calories, but what happens when you stop tracking, right? What are the habits that you have set up? Maybe your best life is actually 5 pounds heavier. And that's so hard for, I think, a lot of us to accept. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I just want to have the really honest conversations that I want you to think through, especially if you're currently at maintenance. If you've been at maintenance before, maybe now you're currently in deficit, you'll approach maintenance a little bit differently and think it through. But let's first talk about just like what maintenance is. And, I had a client recently and most of my clients will ask this question, I explain it, but recently that actually got me realizing, hey, I should make an episode on this. But she's like, what's our goal at maintenance? We're done with our deficit. She's like, what's our goal at maintenance? And she's like, per my understanding, my goal is to maintain my weight. And I clarify with her, I go, no, the goal is not to maintain your weight. The goal is to maintain your body fat levels. And the reason I made that distinction is because you're not going to weigh the same weight as the end of your deficit when you're in maintenance, right? So let's say you end your deficit, you weigh 140 pounds. You will not weigh 140 pounds at maintenance, not because you gain body fat, but because you're physically going to have more food in your body, you're physically going to retain more water. And this was the interesting thing that she said, and something that I want everyone to think through is she goes, oh, well, maybe I'm not done with my deficit yet. And that was really insightful for me to hear. And we talked through that. So for her deficit specifically, and if she's listening to this, so, I'm not saying any names, but, this is the conversation that we have. She's listening to this. She's ending her deficit at 131. And I told her, I was like, okay, awesome. We're ending at 131. And she, said, hey, my understanding is that the goal of maintenance is to maintain my weight. And I go, no, it's to maintain your body fat levels. And I go, because you're not going to actually maintain 131 when we go back to maintenance, because you're physically have more food in your body. You're going to retain more water because you have more food in your body. I was like, it's realistic that you'll probably end up maintaining maybe somewhere around 134. I always say like a 2 to 5 pound range. So anywhere from like 132 to, like 136, 137. She goes, oh, well, maybe I'm not done with my deficit. I go, why do you say that? And she goes, well, I really just want to be 131. And I go, well, what that tells me is that you're attaching your success and your happiness to a number. And the funny thing is the reason we decided to go to maintenance is she said that she's really happy in her body. She's like, I'm loving what I'm seeing in the mirror. I'm really happy. It just doesn't make sense for me to be in a deficit anymore. I was like, awesome, let's go back to maintenance. So we had that conversation. And then when I told her she's not going to be maintaining 131, then she backtracked. She's like, well, maybe I'm not done with the deficit yet. And that's when I challenged her. I was like, okay, are you actually happy with how your body looks in the mirror and how you feel and all of the things that are more important than a number? Or are you attaching your happiness and how you feel to that you see 131 on the scale? And that was an honest conversation that we had to have. And, I talked to her, I was like, hey, if you really want to push in your deficit a little bit longer and get a little bit leaner, I will be supportive of that. But I want you to really think through, are you attaching your contentness in your body to 131? Or are you attaching it to how you're feeling, how you're moving, how you are looking and feeling in your clothes and all that stuff? Or, are you tricking yourself and saying, hey, I love what I'm seeing in the mirror because you're seeing 131 on the scale? And so that was a honest conversation we had to have. And so that first point that I think a lot of women don't realize, and why a lot of women think, oh my gosh, I can't eat any food. If I eat over 1,600 calories, I immediately gain weight. Yes, you're going to gain weight because you physically have more food in your body, not because you're gaining body fat. So that's the first conversation you need to have with yourself. And remember is that when you reverse diet, when you go back to maintenance, you are going to weigh more on the scale, not because you're gaining body fat, right? You have to be in a surplus. So that's the first kind of mindset thing I want you to think through as you go back to maintenance. Is I need you to detach from that number that you ended your deficit at. I need you to detach from the 170 or the 160 or the 150 or the 140 as your success. Second thing we need to think through, we need to process through mindset-wise when it comes to maintenance is the body you deficited, and I know that's not a word, but just go with me here. The body you deficited down to may not be maintainable. Okay. So I know we all have these ambitions of, getting leaner and like be able to see abs or having a quad split or seeing these lines and these muscles. But at the end of the day, you need to understand that the leanness that you achieved in your deficit may not actually be maintainable. And this is probably going to be one of the biggest points in this podcast is because I don't know if I said this at the beginning of the podcast or not, but I'm just going to repeat it anyways if I did. It's not a dream body if it's a nightmare to maintain. So it may be that, okay, cool, you get super, super lean, you have 6-pack abs, but in order to maintain those abs, you not only have to be tracking still, you don't get the option to not track. You have to be tracking to maintain those abs. And not only do you have to be tracking, you actually have to be at a lot lower calories because you're so lean, right? And so there's this realization that you need to have is, okay, when you go back to maintenance, it's very, very possible. Let's say you go back to, you find your maintenance calories, right? You reverse diet, you find your maintenance calories. You go back to maintenance, you track at maintenance calories, you stop tracking. And then once you've stopped tracking, you gain, let's say you lost 10 pounds, you gain 5 pounds of those back. And then you're at this fork in the road where you have to be like, okay, I lost 10 pounds and I gained 5 pounds of that back. The lifestyle that I live and the weekends that I had and the desserts that I enjoy at night and the higher, denser calorie foods that I have bring me a ton of joy to my life. And the only way that I would actually be able to maintain this is going back to tracking, but I don't want to track for the rest of my life. So you come to this fork in the road of like, you either have to accept that your best life and your best maintenance life is 5 pounds heavier, or you're going to have to make changes to what you do in order to maintain that leanness. And for a lot of people, you won't know the answer to this until you walk through it. I don't think any of us go into a fat loss phase thinking, I'm not going to be able to maintain that. I mean, technically, if you're probably like a bodybuilder and you're getting to like, single digits lean, that's not going to be maintainable. But I think for the general population, you and me, we don't really go into a fat loss phase thinking, okay, this might not be maintainable. It's almost like we have to go through the fat loss phase, get to a certain amount of leanness, go back to maintenance, test it out, and then think, okay, is this my best life? And that's something I'm having to go through. I feel like maybe it's been clients I've talked about this with, or maybe it's been on another podcast, but that's something that I'm going through with, right? Is I have to decide, okay, are the things that I'm doing now worth it for me and representative of my best life in order to maintain and lead our body? I don't naturally maintain a lean body. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm not a big mover. I don't move around a ton. And I enjoy denser calorie foods. I'm not someone that just craves vegetables and craves fruit and all that stuff. I just don't. I'm just being completely honest. And so because I'm just not a big mover, like I could be a couch potato. Like if anyone could get a gold medal in couch potato, I could definitely take the gold home for sure. Like I'm going to say I don't crave movement, but I don't super crave movement. I do love working out. I do love being shrunk. But you also know I love more. I love like hanging out with my friends and sitting at a table and eating food and like things that don't really involve movement. It's just not me. And I have friends and family who like, they crave being active. Like it's weird for them to sit still. It's not weird for me to sit still. I can totally sit still. And so I don't naturally maintain a leaner body, and I have to work at it more to maintain a leaner body. I have to be more conscientious of the foods that I'm eating and my movement because I just don't naturally gravitate towards super high volume, low calorie foods, and I don't naturally gravitate towards movement. And so I've hit this fork in the road of like, okay, you know, there's certain things and trade-offs that I'm having to make to maintain my leaner body right now. And currently right now I'm tracking during the week and not tracking on the weekend. I'm actually really, really happy. I don't mind tracking at all. I think there's this, what's the word that I'm looking for? This stigma about tracking where like no one should be tracking for their entire life. And I can somewhat agree with that. I think most people are not going to track for their whole life. I don't think that represents, for a lot of people, it doesn't represent their best life. But as I said in other podcasts, I'm a data person. I'm just a tracker. I track my finances. I track me and Sage's home projects. Like I have spreadsheets for lots of things in my life. I enjoy that stuff. And so tracking for me is just very like, it's just a part of my lifestyle. And so I don't mind tracking the week. And so I have to sit here with myself. It's like, hey, if I, for the rest of my life, like track during the week and didn't track on the weekend, would I be, and I've seen the body that I'm maintaining, am I cool with those things that I'm having to do in order to maintain my body? I'm like, right now, yes. Could there come a time in my life where I'm like, dude, this tracking during the week is getting exhausting? Awesome. I can always change that. That's what's so wonderful about your journey or my journey is it's mine and I can change it at any time. I think there's also this pressure of like, if you choose to do something, you have to do this for the rest of time. It's like, no, life is allowed to ebb and flow. If something really traumatic happens in your life, you're allowed to not work out for 3 months. And I feel like there's this pressure of like, if you're fit, you're doing all these things every single day. It's like, no, your life is allowed to ebb and flow. And right now in my life, I love tracking during the week. It is, I don't even think about it. It is like breathing to me. It's super, super easy. And on the weekend, it's nice to have a little bit of break, not looking up restaurant menus and trying to figure out like, okay, well, I'm going out to eat and, figuring all that stuff out. And I've been able to maintain the body that I deficit down to really, really well. But again, that could change. And it could be also for you, those trade-offs of tracking during the week and on the weekend isn't what you would want to do. And so this kind of tracks into my third point of, how you maintain your body is massively due to your habits, right? And that's for everything. Your habits dictate pretty much everything in your life. Your habits around going to bed at night and how it will affect how you sleep. Your habits around waking early. Your habits around your work, your family, all that kind of stuff impact the world you create around you. And so, if you're someone who was in a deficit, went back to maintenance, stopped tracking, and then after you stopped tracking, you gained 5 pounds, and then you maintained whatever that 5 pound weight gain was. And obviously, like I said, I'm saying like 5 pounds outside of the initial gain, right? Because like I said at the beginning of this episode, like when you are done with the deficit and you go back to maintenance, you're going to weigh more because you physically have more food in your body. Let's just say you maintain a body weight 3 pounds heavier than your deficit, and then you gain 5 pounds on top of that. Then you have to have this conversation with yourself. Like I was saying earlier about my journey is like, okay, I've gained 5 pounds. Do I want to change anything about my habits? Because that's ultimately what it's going to be. If you're not tracking, or part of your habit could be that the habit you have to change is you have to go back to tracking, right? But if you're like, I don't want to go back to tracking. If I want to maintain a leaner body, I'm going to have to change something about what I do. And the conversation I was having with my clients a few weeks ago was I gave them this question of like, we see success through numbers a lot of time, which is not a bad thing. But like when it comes to deficits, like we track our weigh-ins and we track our steps and we track our calories. There's like all these numbers. But when the numbers aren't in the picture, how do you define success for you? And a lot of people were like, well, that I try to get movement every single day and that I'm eating till I'm full and I'm stopping eating when I am full and I'm putting my fork and knife down between bites to slow down my eating, or I play with my kids, or success is that I long-term can be, able-bodied and not only playing with my kids, but then my kids' kids. Like there's all these different parameters that people define their success. And so part of me, I was explaining how I define my success. I'm like, part of me, like when I think of like, what are actions that I see successful in my fitness goal? It's like, going for a daily walk every day. Like that's a big goal of mine. Eating until I'm full, stopping when I'm full. For me, massively slowing down when I eat. I'm a very fast eater. And so it's always a thought process like, hey, slow down. Your food's not going anywhere. Enjoying time with my friends, working out 4 times a week, like weightlifting specifically. Like those are all habits and things that I see. If I'm doing these things on the regular, I see myself as successful in my fitness journey. And so again, back to the analogy of like, let's just say I was in my deficit, lost the weight, reverse dieted, got back to maintenance and gained by 5 pounds of body fat. And again, back to that fork in the road. It's like, okay, do I want to change my habits or do I want to accept where my body is? And it's like, okay, if we go the path of like, if you decide, okay, you know what? Yes, I want to change my habits. I don't want to be 5 pounds heavier. I want to change my habits. It's like, okay, so you're walking every single day. You're stopping when you're full. You're eating when you're hungry. You're taking your dog for a walk. You're enjoying friends and family. You're working out 4 times a week. Like you're doing all of the habits that you deem successful, but you're so attached to this number that you now all of a sudden want to change your habits. And it's like, whoa, okay, why? Then there's the other discussion of like, why are you so hell-bent over this 5 pounds? You are living a really full life. You are doing all of the habits that you deem bring you a really wonderful life. So why is this 5 pounds pushing you to want to change things, to want to be leaner when you're doing all the things that you deem successful? And so maintenance is so much more than just about maintaining your body fat levels. It's really truly about finding your best lifestyle and understanding like, hey, you know what? If going out every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night means that I'm not going to weigh 140, I'm going to weigh 145, but I get to go out to eat every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I don't have to track. Isn't that so much better than 5 pounds? Like this is the other thing you have to think about too. And I think I said this on my last Q&A podcast, the very last question, my Q&A, someone had asked a question around like, how do you accept, if, you want to be leaner, but you don't want to do what it takes to get leaner. How do you accept, your how your body looks and your body fat levels and your weight and all that kind of stuff? And the phrase that I gave and what I said in that is like, what would you gain / what would you lose from losing an extra 5 pounds? Like if you were unhappy, you're like, okay, I don't like that I gained 5 pounds of body fat. Cool. Awesome. If you want to lose that 5 pounds of body fat, it's your life. It's in your control. Awesome. But what do you gain? When you lose that 5 pounds of body fat, what happens to your life? Do you gain anything? Right? Like heavens don't open up. Confetti doesn't come down from the sky. Like what does that add to your life? It probably doesn't add anything, right? What do you lose? That's the bigger question, right? It may be like, hey, I can't go out and not track Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night because that puts me at a higher calories and then I maintain a higher body weight. So I'll have to trim out some of my going out. And I'm also going to have to start tracking again during the weeks. And I'm also going to have to do this. You may end up losing out on your best life by having to be 5 pounds leaner. And so this is all, I feel like right now as I'm talking, I'm just like pounding. I'm trying to like pound it in you. Maybe you guys don't feel like that. Hopefully you don't. I'm not trying to pound it into you, but I'm trying to really get you to do some internal work of like, why do I attach success or my value or how I feel best to a number? And why don't I attach it to the life I ultimately want to live? And part of, let's go another segue. Part of the life that you want to live is like being able-bodied. I keep talking about like this 5 pounds thing. It could be that some of you guys lose 30 pounds and, do a wonderful job. You lose 30 pounds of body fat, and through losing the 30 pounds of body fat, you gain mobility, you're stronger, you can keep up with your kids, you can run, your cardiovascular is better, and then maybe you gain 40 of it back, right? You just go the complete opposite direction after you lose that weight. And then you have that conversation of like, okay, I am going to have to change habits, because obviously the habits that I have outside of being in a deficit don't support the healthier lifestyle that I'm trying to live, because I gained back the weight plus some. Now I'm not able to keep up with my kids. Now I'm not able to get up and down as easily. Now I'm winded when I go up the stairs. And so there is that honest conversation of like, okay, let's go back to a deficit. We're going to lose the weight again, but we're also going to focus on what's 2.0 version of me. Okay. What is my new lifestyle going to look like at maintenance? And I don't want you thinking that you have to do like this massive, like, rip everything away from you and you have to be like only eating vegetables and lean meats and all this stuff. It's like, no, there's obviously a habit that you revert, or habits probably that you revert back to after you're outside of a deficit, and it's supporting the old lifestyle of you, right? And so there's obviously two conversations to this of, we forget / don't realize how much 5 pounds can actually add to our life, how much 5 pounds can actually feel like confetti is falling down from the ceiling and the heavens are opening up. Even a small taste of that, right, is when you go from like deficit back to maintenance. Every time I go from deficit back to maintenance, I'm like, why did I ever go into deficit? Like, being at maintenance rocks, having more food rocks. And then even on top of that, not being so attached to a number on the scale and allowing your habits to dictate your best life versus a number on the scale, that becomes more freeing as well. So I just want to encourage everyone that's listening to this, whether you're at maintenance, whether you're going back to maintenance in weeks from now, whatever that may be, is, again, there's totally value to reverse dieting, finding your maintenance calories, seeing where that is, seeing what maintenance calories feels like, and having the data to back that up. But then once you have that data, figuring out what's your best lifestyle with the habits that you have. And if I'm being really honest, something else that I've experimented with is like, this body that I'm currently maintaining now, that is the leanest body that I've been in, it does require a little bit of extra movement on my part for sure. And I've been experimenting with the extra movement, and to my surprise, I did not think it would go this way. I feel so good getting more movement in my deficit. I try to always hit 10,000 steps. It's my average that I go for is 10,000 steps a day. And now I've been at maintenance, and I'm just like, this leaner body may take more movement for me to maintain. I've been upping my step or my step goal, and I've been averaging around 13,000 steps per week. And as I've averaged out to 13,000 steps, you come to a fork in the road. I'm like, okay, one, is this doable? Is this actually realistic for me to be getting on average over the course of a week, 13,000 steps per day? Or is this something that I'm really, really pushing for? And like, yeah, this is great. This will help me maintain a leaner body, but this is not a part of my best life. And I actually found out through pushing more activity, my sleep is better. My poops are better. Like, the extra movement. I didn't realize how much better I would feel from getting the extra movement. I really didn't. I honestly just did it because I was like, hey, you know what? I just, maintaining this leaner body, especially not tracking on the weekend, I could benefit probably from some extra movement. I purely did it out of experimenting, seeing like, hey, will this help me maintain a little bit better? Will this actually put me into a little bit deficit and I can eat more food? How would this pan out? And end up realizing it actually just made me feel better overall. Now, are there some days where I don't hit 13,000 steps? Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, I can hit 13,000 steps all day long, but I want my maintenance to represent my best life. And so if there is a day where I'm like really, really busy, I always try to plan out my walks, always try to. But if there's just one day where it really doesn't happen, it's okay if for that week, my steps end up panning out at 10,000 or 11,000 or whatever it is. But I'm constantly, I don't say constantly, but I am slowly over time evaluating my current habits now and just saying, okay, is this what I love? Is this what's serving me for me to have my best life? At the end of the day, that's how your maintenance should be defined. Is this giving me my best lifestyle? Is my habits supporting my best life and also supporting the body that gives me the best life? But then also having that conversation of, okay, the body that I think gives me the best life actually makes maintenance a nightmare. And I need to do some internal work of why am I so obsessed with trying to maintain this leaner body? All right, guys, I feel like I talked a little bit ad nauseum about this, but hopefully that gave you guys some good thought-provoking thought processes as you think through your maintenance, think through maintenance period, what maintenance is defined for you. If you enjoyed this episode or have any feedback, as always, please shoot me a message on Instagram. It is always super helpful for me to get feedback on all my episodes. And as always, a free way to support the show is screenshotting this, sharing on your stories, tagging me so I can repost it. And I super, super appreciate it. So again, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I will catch you on next week's episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Damn Strong Podcast. Show me some love by leaving a review and sharing a screenshot of this episode on your Instagram stories. Until next time, stay strong.